In my sales coaching work with individuals and teams, I often use assessments as part of the development process. Assessments create new insights, help uncover areas of challenge or even weakness, and even sometimes provide insight into blind spots that might be holding a salesperson back from being much more effective. So today I'm going to share with you one of the assessments that I've used with clients in the past for your understanding and consideration. Today we're going to look at the PXT Select assessment specifically for salespeople and salesperson development. Or it can be used to hire salespeople. If you're a sales manager watching this video, consider it from that possible angle. So as I mentioned in the intro, the work that I do with salespeople is to help uncover insights that could help them to grow and develop and become more successful as a salesperson. How would this assessment do that? Let's take a look. This is a sample report with a profile of what's considered to be effective sales thinking, behavior, and interests. And you'll see what that means as we get into the report. This is a multi-page report because it can be used to hire salespeople, and there are actually interview questions provided in this report based on the results of the assessment. When a candidate takes this assessment, it can take anywhere from 30 to even 60 minutes because there is a math section, which has some fairly complex math, and there's also a verbal section, which has some pretty advanced vocabulary for testing certain parts of a person's thinking style. And again, you'll see what I mean by that when we take a look at the report. Down near the bottom, you see here that it says distortion was not detected in this report. That means that the person who took the assessment did not try to manipulate the results. This is rare, but it does occasionally happen, and there are safeguards built into the assessment to ensure that if that happens, that it's detected and called out. So this assessment report sample is using what's called a performance model. You see up at the top it says sample sales position for PXT Select, and the candidate is named Oliver Chase. Now this can be also used for existing salespeople just to establish fit within the position, opportunities for growth, and where they're strong. So Oliver is in a sales position, and we're comparing his results with what might be considered to be a performance model for a successful salesperson. And that's represented by the green and blue bands on the chart below. The top section is thinking style, and you see that each section has a percentage next to it. It's saying fit, and then at the top there's overall fit. When I use this assessment with hiring managers, we're usually looking for an 80% fit or higher, and that would then probably support a recommendation that this candidate move forward in the hiring process. Now, when I'm working with a salesperson or a sales team, obviously this is not important. This is not an assessment to be used to let someone go in an existing position. It's just used for development and growth opportunity discovery. So as we look down at this thinking style, you see that there's a composite score. Oliver has a score of 8, and that's because he has high scores on the other sub-elements here, the verbal skill, verbal reasoning, numerical ability, and numeric reasoning. And because of those scores, they create that composite score of 8. And you might wonder, why isn't it 100% fit when his initials are landing within the green band on every measurement? Well, we never believe that someone is a 100% fit, so we stop at 95%. But Oliver is clearly a good fit for this position. The composite score of 8 means that Oliver will learn quickly, can apply new information readily, and probably succeed fast in a new position requiring some pretty quick training and learning on the job and jumping in with both feet right away. Oliver looks like a good candidate for a sales position like that. He has an advanced verbal skill, meaning that he can probably be pretty fluent with a variety of different people in different situations, has a good vocabulary to communicate, express himself, give sales presentations, etc. The score of 6 on verbal reasoning is well within the range, and that means that he's able to reason through negotiation situations, reason through situations where the client or prospect might not be necessarily happy with what they're hearing and need to have some back and forth discussion to work through the situation, Oliver should be able to do that. The score of 9 on numerical ability, numeric reasoning, means that Oliver can do fairly complex math that might be necessary in some specific situations and be fine, doing that, and even analyze statistical information and figure out some good conclusions and insights that he might then use to present to clients or perhaps to superiors in a QBR, something like that. So you'll see here that Oliver is quite qualified in the thinking style section, right, with that 95% fit, and he should be very much able to reason through situations and communicate well. So now this is the section that gets really interesting, the behavioral trait section. Here you see that Oliver is a 66% fit because he's not within the blue band on all the behavioral traits. There are 9 different behavioral traits here. The first one being pace, which represents Oliver's sense of urgency. We know that salespeople often need to have a sense of urgency. They're usually juggling a lot of different accounts and prospects, learning new things, having to come up with proposals and follow up on emails, be really responsive to email, all in the course of a single day or within a week. And as deadlines near the end of the quarter, the end of the month, Oliver's pace may need to increase. So his score of 7 means that he does have a sense of urgency. He will be responsive. He should be able to juggle multiple deadlines happening simultaneously and be effective. Next, you have assertiveness, which is also a score of 7, meaning that he can come across confident and convicted and be somewhat forceful in pushing for a conclusion in a conversation that is leading towards a sales decision, but not come across too strong. You notice that the performance model stops at 8, in that if someone was a 9 or a 10, they just might come across too strong and be too direct and blunt for a prospect or client's appetite. So we can even accept someone who's down towards unassuming, starting with a score of 4, right? So you see that they could be more unassuming towards forceful and still be within the range. Another thing you should understand about this assessment is people can generally move 1 or 2 positions to the left or to the right. That's the flexible range within which we can operate. And most people land within the center section because out at the ends, it's like a bell curve where just 2.5% of the population is represented by the 1 or the 10 on these scales. The third one is sociability, right? Sociability, we look for people who are generally very sociable, outgoing, confident to talk with strangers and strike up conversations and lead the conversation, give presentations, and come across as a lively, upbeat, positive person by being outgoing. Well, Oliver doesn't meet the range here. With a score of 4, he could potentially flex over to the right a few positions, and he might still find himself a little below the range. So this might be an area that if Oliver feels that he's not able to turn it on and be more outgoing, could be a challenge for him in certain situations. It's something to talk about as the coach or the manager working with him. On conformity, salespeople tend to be strong-willed. They're usually not as compliant. And so you see here that we're not looking for someone who's highly compliant, because sometimes salespeople, they break the rules and apologize later. They come up with their own ways of doing things, that they're not always the first to follow all the rules and processes and policies. And when they're successful, that could potentially be okay. When they're not, we may want them to be a little more compliant and follow the process rather than reinvent it. But you see here that Oliver tends to be more on the compliant side, but he's still within the range, and that should be fine. On the outlook, skeptical is preferred because we want people to question the status quo. Why not consider our solution? Why not consider a new alternative to your existing vendor? Why not consider that our product or service, which may be outside of your budget, could still meet your needs, right? That being a little bit skeptical and pushing back with your assertiveness could be a way to get more deals done. And so that's why you tend to see more salespeople on the left side of the equation. In decisiveness, we look for bold thinkers, people who are creative, willing to take risks to bring in big deals, go after high-level prospects that might intimidate you, but you're willing to be decisive and go after that leader and seek to engage them in conversation and move a sale into the likelihood of actually getting done. So we look for bold, decisive people in the sales role. Oliver doesn't really meet that standard. He's a 4, which makes him someone who deliberates on decisions. He might take longer to make a decision, may not move quickly, and take risks that could bring in big rewards for him and the organization he works for. So this would, again, be an area of conversation. Accommodation. Salespeople are usually fairly steadfast. Of course, they want to be agreeable, but they also want to be steadfast to hold firm to the proposal, not offer discounts too easily. You see salespeople who are too agreeable often roll over, take no for an answer, offer discounts too quickly, or too many incentives, that sort of thing. So we like to see salespeople be more on the left side on accommodation. And Oliver tends to be a little more agreeable, but he's still on the left side, so he's probably going to be okay here. Most salespeople are independent, and so you see that salespeople tend to be on the right side of the range, be more autonomous, self-starters, self-directed, self-motivated, self-driven. These are all classic traits of successful salespeople. Oliver is fine there with a 7 on that score. Salespeople tend to be intuitive, make decisions from the gut. You saw that we like salespeople who are bold thinkers. Well, intuitive people may be bold thinkers because they don't need all the facts in order to leap at an opportunity and just go for it. Oliver tends to be more factual. He may want more information before moving forward, and that could slow down the sales process actually. And so he's not a fit there. And this one is a pretty big separation. So we definitely have to have a conversation around maybe starting to trust his intuition more. As I'm going through this, you might think about yourself and where you land on these different measurements and how it might help you to consider how where you land might impact your effectiveness in a variety of sales situations. The last section is called interests. And what you see here is 6 different interests that suggest the type of work that you might embrace and thrive within. In the performance model, we believe salespeople are enterprising. They like to build the business, come up with new game-changing ideas for their clients and prospects. They're enterprising, right? They like to go after the numbers and achieve them. They like to get business done. People service makes sense. Creative makes sense because they need to be creative to make deals happen, to come up with new ideas for clients to extend their business with their organization, etc. Oliver, he is creative and he's tied for 3rd on enterprising, but people service actually is 5th in the rank order. And that might indicate his 4 on sociability, that he's not that outgoing, and so he might not actually appreciate jobs where he's in contact with people on a regular basis. So if Oliver hasn't been successful in sales so far, you might point to a couple of the misses here on the profile and talk about that and really have a candid conversation with Oliver as to whether this is the best career choice for him, or might there be something that could be even better. And so that's the main part of the report. The rest of the report actually breaks down each of these measurements and talks about potentially follow-up questions if it was a sales interview, and how the measurement applies in different sales situations, much as I've done here in describing the measurements with you. If you'd like more information about taking this assessment for yourself, feel free to contact me at michael@buildandbalance.com. Know that it's not cheap, so I'm just telling you that right up front. I'm not going to state the price because these videos sit on my channel for some time and prices do change. So I would be happy to quote you if you email me. If you'd like to learn more about my sales coaching and training solutions, go to buildandbalance.com. And I hope that you have liked this video. If you have questions, please post them in the comments or email me. And please share this video with other people who it might help. Or share it with your manager if you'd like your manager to consider purchasing this assessment to develop the team or to be used in a team training process. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because I regularly come out with new videos to help you to win more deals and be more successful. Thank you very much, and best wishes to you.